Hey, it's Lou, and here's the thing. 45 million Americans share a $1.5 trillion problem. I'm talking about student loan debt. This massive financial obligation has far-reaching implications for the wider economy. And while younger generations bear the brunt of this liability, even senior citizens are affected. Many took out loans to return to school or to help their kids and grandkids. Now, they're seeing their payments taken out of their Social Security checks. No wonder, then, that the idea of student debt forgiveness has emerged in the national conversation. Philanthropist Robert F. Smith pledged tens of millions of dollars to clear the debt of Morehouse College's 2019 graduating class.
And my family is making a grant to eliminate their student loans.
Presidential contender Elizabeth Warren recently introduced a plan she claims would help 95% of Americans with student debt. Warren says she would pay for her plan with the wealth tax. However, critics question the fairness of using public money to settle private commitments. So, should rich taxpayers pick up this trillion-dollar tab? And is Warren's plan regressive? It's a perfect storm. The cost of college has far outpaced inflation in the past few decades. Working class wages have been stubbornly stagnant. In the wake of the Great Recession, many states have cut back on the contributions they make to higher education. All of these factors have made attending college an expensive affair. Consider, in 1990, average tuition and fees amounted to 6.3% of median household income. In 2014, it had risen to 15.9%, and that doesn't even include room and board. For many people, particularly the people who write news headlines, this rises to the level of a crisis. Millennials in particular have struggled to build the resources to open businesses, buy homes, have kids, or save for retirement. Enter into this scene Senator Elizabeth Warren. In April, the 2020 hopeful unveiled a $640 billion plan she claims would offer some level of student debt forgiveness to 95% of student debt holders. She says over 3/4 of those with student debt would have their obligations completely wiped away, although Americans who have a household income in excess of $250,000 would get no relief. In addition, Warren wants to eliminate the cost of tuition and fees at every public college in America. She's proposed expanding Pell Grants and investing in historically black colleges and universities. The price of this package, she says, is an additional $610 billion over 10 years. I spoke to two of the academics who modeled the Warren plan for her campaign. Thomas Shapiro, a professor of law and social policy at Brandeis University, and Shapiro Charron-Chénier, assistant professor of justice and social inquiry at Arizona State University. They emphasized that Warren's plan is designed to close the racial wealth gap, an inequity, Charron-Chénier explained, perpetuated in particular by discriminatory federal policies that prevented blacks from obtaining mortgages. This has impacted black wealth for generations, since housing is an asset that grows in value over time. To close this gap, Warren's plan would disproportionately benefit blacks. While black households represent just 16% of all households, 25% of canceled debt dollars would go to black households, according to the Urban Institute's analysis of Warren's plan. In addition, Shapiro underscored that Warren's proposal would offer full debt cancellation to 90% of households that took out a loan but did not complete college. Shapiro explained that these folks have the burden of a college bill without the financial benefit of a college degree. Now, that last part, the financial benefit of a college degree, is an important point to highlight. Analysis out of the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce finds that those with a bachelor's degree make about $1 million more over their lifetimes than those with just a high school diploma. That's why Matthew Chingos, Vice President of Education Data and Policy at the Urban Institute, told me son's student loan debt is good debt. Several of the experts I spoke to told me this point is often obscured by the media's tendency to focus on people who have excessively large, bad debt that does not represent the average experience, folks who dropped out or pursued multiple degrees. So the question becomes, if going to college is profitable, if it will ultimately lead to an additional $1 million over the course of your lifetime, why shouldn't individuals who benefit from that profit use some of it to pay off their debt? Why instead should taxpayers foot the bill, especially since a college degree often benefits the already wealthy and well-connected? And this gets at what critics think is a fatal flaw in Warren's plan. Because it is so expansive, it winds up paying the bills of fairly affluent people who probably don't need the help. The Brookings Institute found that the highest earning 10% of college loan debtors eligible for forgiveness under Warren's plan would get a $900 annual benefit. On the other hand, the bottom 20% of earners receive a smaller benefit, just $569 a year. Granted, that's probably more impactful than the $900 going to the wealthiest, but some commentators have called Warren's plan regressive, i.e., it benefits the rich more than the poor. Furthermore, it's worth noting that the Urban Institute estimates that Warren's plan is more expensive than she claims, but Warren says a wealth tax she's also proposing would generate returns that could pay for these types of programs. Now, the reason wealthier Americans get a bigger benefit is because they tend to have larger college debt. This seems counterintuitive, but Chingos explained they may have gone to more expensive colleges or pursued graduate degrees. Candidly, knowing a bit about Warren's progressive politics, it surprised me that she put forth a plan that would steer benefits towards the upper echelons of society. That Brookings analysis found that the occupational group receiving the largest average amount of loan forgiveness is the category that includes lawyers, doctors, engineers, architects, managers, and executives. When I pressed Shapiro on this, A, he reminded me that while he helped work on the proposal, he doesn't speak for the campaign. Fair enough. But B, he said one possible rationale for including the relatively wealthy is that a targeted program that only benefits minority groups is a difficult thing to sell to the public at large. By including 95% of student loan debtors, Warren's plan might garner broader support. In other words, helping high-income earners is the political price you pay for helping the less fortunate. Shapiro also noted that including relatively wealthy folks in the plan might encourage them to pursue jobs that benefit the common good. For instance, he told me there's evidence that first-year law students often express an interest in pursuing careers in public service, but by the time they're graduating with buckets full of debt, they feel compelled to take jobs at Wall Street firms. In addition, Ruetschlin, an adjunct assistant professor of economics at the University of Utah, told me that if loan payments go away, people can now spend that money on other things, consumer goods, houses, small businesses, investments, etc. This economic activity spurs job creation and growth. A paper Ruetschlin co-authored found that full student debt cancellation would increase GDP and decrease unemployment. That sounds like a win-win. However, Neil McCluskey, the director of the Cato Institute's Center for Educational Freedom, told me Warren's plan is problematic on a basic fairness level. McCluskey pointed out that there are many people who worked multiple jobs throughout college, who passed on spring break vacations, who aggressively paid down their tuition obligations at the expense of other priorities. But Warren's plan sort of negates that sacrifice. It almost turns them into fools. They should have just waited for Uncle Sam to pick up the tab. Again, I asked Shapiro about this criticism. He empathized with it, but told me that we can't let the good people of the past be the enemy of the people moving forward. He told me to consider Social Security. Before it was implemented, most elderly people didn't receive government benefits. Those folks may have thought it was unfair that the next generation did get public benefits, but you have to draw the line somewhere. For McCluskey, this line isn't at student debt. He told me that people willingly entered into that obligation, and therefore it is their responsibility to pay it off. He added that the macroeconomic stimulus effect of forgiveness is overrated, and there are more efficient ways to jumpstart the economy. Beth Akers, a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, echoed this sentiment. In the opinion piece, she writes, quote, "Only about 1/3 of workers in the U.S. economy benefit from the earnings boost afforded by a 4-year degree. How do we tell the other 2/3 that their problems will have to wait so that the already privileged don't have to suffer the indignity of delaying the purchase of their first home in order to pay for their own education?" Akers told me there are already safety nets in place to help people struggling to pay their student loans. A program called Revised Pay As You Earn allows borrowers to pay no more than 10% of their discretionary income towards their loans. If they make those payments for 20 years, the full debt is forgiven even if a balance remains. Akers added that taking advantage of this program is often confusing and requires cutting through a lot of red tape. Therefore, she thinks people should be automatically enrolled in the program. In that vein, Senator Lamar Alexander has proposed a bill that would withhold student loan payments directly from paychecks. The withholding would fluctuate based on your income, just like how tax withholdings fluctuate. For McCluskey, the solution to the student loan issue is tied to our cultural perceptions of a college degree. He told me we treat it as a sign of superiority, and he added that many jobs require them because they become a sort of stamp of approval, not because they make workers more productive or more qualified. But if we reduce that cultural pressure to go to college, McCluskey continued, fewer people would take out loans they struggle to repay. Fewer people would be burdened with bad debt. And all this is a reminder that the well-intentioned goal of steering Americans towards higher education has turned into an empty promise for many. Yes, America's education system is a key driver of innovation and growth, but college is merely one respectable path. There are others. Okay, I'm gonna go live my life.